The cabin lights glowed soft and gold as the aircraft breathed quietly at the gate, but the silence around her felt sharp, humiliating, and heavy. She stood there with her boarding pass trembling between her fingers, the word first still visible, while the crew's judgment pressed down on her like turbulence before a storm. In that moment, she felt every stare, every unspoken assumption, every quiet doubt that had followed her since the day she learned to walk into rooms that were never built for women like her. If stories about dignity, resilience, and second chances matter to you, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. She had boarded countless planes in her life, traveled through more cities than she could remember, and signed contracts worth more than the aircraft itself. Still, none of that shielded her from the sting of being questioned, delayed, and subtly dismissed. The crew's smiles were tight and rehearsed, their movements efficient but cold, as they redirected her away from the aisle that led to first class. Her chest tightened as she realized they had already decided who she was before she could even take her seat. She felt the familiar urge to explain herself, to justify her presence, to prove she belonged, but she swallowed it down. Years of struggle had taught her that dignity was sometimes found in silence. She took a breath and stepped aside, the hum of the plane filling the space where her voice might have been. Memories surfaced without warning, memories of cramped apartments where she studied late into the night, of early mornings when she rode buses with dreams bigger than her pockets, of boardrooms where she was mistaken for an assistant rather than the decision-maker. She remembered every closed door that had forced her to knock louder, every polite dismissal that sharpened her resolve. This moment, painful as it was, felt like another test in a lifetime of them. The minutes stretched on as passengers shuffled past her, some curious, some indifferent, a few sympathetic but silent. She wondered how many times people like her were quietly pushed aside in spaces meant to be equal. Her heart pounded, not with anger, but with a deep, aching disappointment. She had hoped, just once, that the world might surprise her in a kinder way. Instead, it handed her another reminder of how easily assumptions were made and how slowly respect was given. Then, something shifted. A message vibrated softly on her phone, pulling her attention away from the tight knot in her chest. It was a reminder of the meeting scheduled for that very flight, a confidential audit briefing that could not be delayed. She looked around the cabin again, her posture straightening, her expression calm but resolute. She realized she no longer needed to shrink herself to fit the moment. The struggle she had endured had prepared her for this exact crossroads, where silence could turn into action and pain could become purpose. The crew continued their routines, unaware of the gravity of the situation unfolding quietly in their midst. What they saw was a woman standing alone, what they failed to see was a leader who had built empires from nothing, who had risen through barriers designed to keep her out. 5 minutes passed, and in those 5 minutes, years of perseverance gathered like a wave ready to break. When the truth finally surfaced, it was not dramatic in the way movies portray revelations. There were no raised voices or grand gestures. There was only a sudden, unmistakable shift in energy. Faces paled, movements faltered, and the confidence that had fueled their earlier judgment evaporated. The realization hit them all at once. The woman they had denied was not just a passenger, but the CEO of the parent company overseeing their airline's operations. The weight of their actions settled heavily in the air, thicker than the recycled oxygen flowing through the cabin. She remained composed as authority replaced humiliation, her voice steady, her presence commanding without cruelty. The decision that followed was swift and firm, not born of revenge, but of responsibility. She placed the crew on immediate suspension pending investigation, emphasizing that respect was not optional and dignity was not selective. It was a moment that redefined power, showing that true leadership did not scream or gloat, but corrected what was broken with clarity and purpose. As she finally walked toward her rightful seat, the cabin seemed smaller, quieter, more reflective. She felt no triumph, only a solemn resolve to ensure that no one else would endure what she had just faced. Sitting down, she closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself to feel the weight of the journey that had brought her here. It was not just her victory, it was a reminder that progress often comes from standing firm in moments meant to break us. The plane eventually lifted into the sky, carrying with it a lesson that would ripple far beyond that single flight. Policies would change, training would be enforced, and conversations would begin, all sparked by a moment of bias confronted with grace and authority. She stared out the window as clouds rolled beneath her, thinking of the young girls watching from afar, wondering if they too could rise above the limits placed on them. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own struggles or inspired you to stand taller in the face of injustice, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps spread messages that challenge the world to do better. Before this story ends, leave a comment below sharing what this moment meant to you or who it reminded you of. Your words might inspire someone scrolling in silence. As the flight continued smoothly through the night, she rested back, not as someone who had proven her worth, but as someone who had always known it. The world might still stumble, still judge, still underestimate, but she would keep rising, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they did not belong. And somewhere between the earth below and the stars above, a quiet promise echoed that change, once started, could not be grounded again.